Racist cop mocks black woman. Clueless, she's the new top cop in town. On a humid Jacksonville evening, the street fair pulsed with music and chatter until Officer Travis Malone, a towering white cop, barked at Patrice Coleman, a black woman in a sharp blazer, to move her sorry ass. She stared him down, unflinching, and he spit directly in her face. Phones lit up, gasps rippled, but she calmly wiped it away, whispered into her phone, and disappeared into the crowd. Later, Travis strutted into the precinct, bragging loudly, clueless about the storm he just triggered. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe. Tomorrow's episode will turn everything you think you know upside down. Travis strolled into the Jacksonville precinct locker room, his boots thudding across the scuffed linoleum. A cocky grin tugged at his weathered face as he tossed his cap onto a bench. His shift had wrapped 15 minutes earlier, and the fair's buzz still clung to him like the sweat staining his collar. Leaning against a locker, he popped open a soda and let out a raspy laugh that echoed off the metal walls. "You should have seen it," he said to a small group of younger officers stripping off their gear. "This lady at the fair, just standing there like she ran the joint, holding up the whole damn line. I told her to move her sorry ass. She gave me that look, so I spit right in her face. Bam. Put her in her place." The room filled with chuckles. A few nodded, half amused, half uncomfortable. Travis thrived on that reaction. He took a long gulp, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, savoring the memory. The stunned look, the way she simply wiped it off and walked away. Weak, he thought. Just another nobody trying to act tough. He had no idea her name was Patrice Coleman, or that his night was about to explode. Across town, in a 10th-floor hotel suite overlooking the St. Johns River, Patrice sat on the edge of a firm armchair. Her navy blazer draped over the backrest, fingers steady as she scrolled through her phone. The air conditioner hummed, trying to beat back the sticky heat seeping through the windows. But her focus was razor-sharp. A grainy video flickered on screen, time-stamped 7:32 p.m., barely an hour ago. There she stood, surrounded by the fair's chaos, balloons bobbing overhead, distant laughter, until Travis's bark sliced through the noise. "Move your sorry ass." And then the spit, a wet glob arcing through the air, smacking her cheek. The camera shook as someone gasped, "Did he just?" And then it caught her reaction. A slow turn, one brow lifted, a casual swipe of her sleeve, and her silent walk away into the crowd. She replayed it, her jaw tightening, not from embarrassment, but from the cold fury twisting inside her chest. She tapped the screen. Views, 10,000. Rising fast. Comments poured in. "Disgusting pig. That's our tax dollars at work?" Another, "She deserved it." Acting all high and mighty. Patrice's lips thinned. This wasn't just about her. It was something bigger, something darker. And she'd been waiting for the right spark. She put the phone down and picked up a second. A burner from her suitcase, its matte plastic cool in her palm. Dialed a number from memory, her voice low, firm. When the line picked up, "It's me. I need a full file on Officer Travis Malone, Jacksonville PD. Every complaint, every slap on the wrist. By morning." The voice on the other end, gravelly, belonging to Lena, an old ally from Atlanta, didn't miss a beat. "Got it, Chief. Anything else?" Patrice's eyes flicked back to the now 12,000-view video. "Yeah, keep it quiet." She ended the call and leaned back, already drawing up the battlefield in her mind. She'd landed in Jacksonville 3 days ago, her appointment as police chief still under wraps until next week. A deliberate, low-profile entrance to assess the terrain. And now Travis had handed her a live grenade. By 9 p.m., the precinct had thinned. Fluorescent lights buzzed above worn desks. The night shift shuffled in, yawning and cradling coffee cups. Travis lingered in a chair, legs stretched, telling a louder, even more exaggerated version of his story to a rookie. "She didn't even push back," he crowed. "Just slunk off like some kicked dog." He tossed his empty can into the trash with a metallic thud. The rookie, a wiry kid with acne scars, laughed nervously, unsure whether to grin or look away. Travis didn't notice, too wrapped up in the echo of his own voice. Outside, the city hummed, unaware of the fire catching in its veins. Meanwhile, the video hit 15,000 views. It spread across platforms like a spark in dry brush. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag justice for her. Hashtag racist cop. A barista from the fair posted a follow-up, shaky footage of Travis shoving through the crowd, his badge glinting under the fair's string lights. "This guy's a menace," read the caption. The retweets surged. A digital storm was coming, and Travis was still in his bubble. 30 miles south, in a cluttered radio studio packed with monitors and microphones, Carl Vance hunched over a desk, his bald scalp gleaming under a flickering desk lamp. At 52, the former trucker-turned-shock jock had clawed his way onto Jacksonville's airwaves with Vance Unleashed, a program built on outrage. Tonight, he'd hit gold. A listener had DM'd the video. He'd watched it 3 times, then grinned like a wolf spotting a limping deer. Well, he muttered, cracking his knuckles. He hit record. The red light blinked to life. He leaned into the mic. "Listen up, Jacksonville. We've got ourselves a hero tonight. A cop who ain't afraid to put these uppity types in their place. Officer Travis Malone, folks, standing tall against the woke mob. This woman strutting around like she's somebody. She got what she had coming. A little spit never hurt nobody, but it sure shut her up." He laughed, a sharp, grating sound that sliced through the broadcast, and he kept rolling. "The left'll cry, but real Americans get it. Travis? He's one of us, fighting back." He uploaded the clip to his site, and by 10 p.m. the match was lit. It was streaming live to his 10,000 loyal listeners. A spark tossed into dry brush. Back at the hotel, Patrice's phone buzzed. A message from Maya Torres, a friend and journalist she tipped off earlier. "Videos at 20,000. You okay?" Patrice typed back, "Fine. Watch Vance's show tonight." She switched apps, pulled up Carl's broadcast, and caught the last seconds of his tirade. "Travis Malone, a name you won't forget," Carl shouted, and heat flared in Patrice's chest. She refreshed the video's page, 30,000 views. The comments section had become a battleground. Fire him clashed with good for him, and even uglier slurs she'd heard far too often. Patrice closed her eyes, drawing a steady breath, picturing Travis's arrogant expression. He thought he'd won a minor scuffle, flexing the power of his badge. What he didn't realize was that she'd already received his personnel file, sent over by Lena at 11:58 p.m. PDF packed with damning content. 15 years on the force, 37 complaints, excessive force, racial profiling, a chokehold in 2012 that nearly killed a black teenager, all buried by a department that valued loyalty over law. She scrolled through the document, her pulse calm but determined. Each entry added fuel to the fire she was ready to ignite. By the time Carl's segment hit the streets, it landed like a bombshell. By midnight, his website had crashed from heavy traffic, but clips of him applauding Travis spread like wildfire, doubling the video's reach to 60,000 views. A gas station clerk tweeted, "Carl Vance speaks truth. That cop's a hero." Meanwhile, a nurse responded, "This is exactly why people don't trust the police." The city was divided, a crack forming deep and fast, and Travis was completely unaware. He lay passed out on his couch, a half-drained beer nestled against his stomach. Across town, Patrice stood by her hotel window, gazing at the dark ribbon of the St. Johns River below, slicing through city lights. She had come to Jacksonville to reform a broken police department, not to become the centerpiece of a viral scandal. But Travis had made it personal, and Carl had made it public. She slid the burner phone into her pocket, the personnel file still glowing on her laptop screen. "You've got no idea what's coming," she whispered. The night wore on, the video approaching 75,000 views, a fuse hissing toward detonation. The sun had barely risen over Jacksonville's skyline when Patrice Coleman strode into City Hall, her heels striking the marble floor like a ticking clock. It was 6:45 a.m., the air still clinging with last night's heat, and the building buzzed with sleepy bureaucrats clinging to their coffee. She had traded her navy blazer for a charcoal suit, tailored and sharp. Her badge sat tucked in her pocket, a quiet promise of the power she'd formally hold in just 5 days, when her role as police chief became official. The video had now crossed 90,000 views, a digital inferno she had stoked with Travis Malone's file, now searing a hole in her briefcase. She didn't knock when she reached the mayor's office. She shoved the door open and found Harold Grayson mid-bite of a jelly donut, his tie askew, bald head gleaming under the lights. "Who the hell are you?" he blurted, crumbs falling across his cluttered desk. Patrice didn't flinch. She dropped her badge onto the desk, the metal clinking on wood, and locked eyes with him. "Patrice Coleman, your new police chief. Suspend Officer Travis Malone. Now." Her voice was a blade, clean, sharp, and final. Grayson blinked, his jowls trembling, blue eyes darting from the badge back to her. He looked like a man staring down headlights. "Look, Ms. Coleman, I don't know what this is about," he began. She cut him off, sliding her phone across the desk. The video was paused. Travis's spit frozen midair, heading straight for her cheek. 990,000 people do. Her tone never wavered. "Suspend him, or I'll make sure every newsroom in Florida knows you protect racist cops." Each word stacked like bricks, building a wall he couldn't scale. Grayson gulped, Adam's apple bobbing, and reached for his desk phone with shaking fingers. By 7:15 a.m., the order was official: Travis Malone, suspended without pay. Patrice gave a single nod and turned on her heel, leaving without another word as the door closed behind her. Outside, the morning sun blazed, and for the first time since arriving, she allowed herself a small smile, a flicker of satisfaction. The justice she'd come to deliver had begun. Could this be the first crack in the dam? By 9 a.m., the story had hit local news. A small blog broke it first. "Racist cop suspended after viral video." Supporters flooded comment threads with raised fist emojis and chants. The video now surged past 100,000 views. Back in her hotel, Patrice sipped black coffee, watching the public sentiment shift. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Maya. "You're already a legend." Patrice smirked. Maybe, just maybe, she'd landed a solid blow. Across town, Travis woke to a barrage of missed calls. His suspension letter was hand-delivered by a stiff-faced sergeant who wouldn't meet his gaze. He roared, hurling his phone across the room, the screen shattering against a wall cluttered with hunting trophies. "Suspended? For what? Spitting on some nobody?" He shouted to no one, his voice thick with disbelief. He cracked open a beer, the aluminum chilled in his grip, and downed it in gulps. Pacing like a trapped animal, his thoughts spun with fury. Who did this? How dare they? He didn't know Patrice's name, didn't care, but the sting of losing his badge, even temporarily, pierced like a thorn. Meanwhile, Carl Vance smelled blood. His studio was sweltering, the AC busted, but he didn't flinch. Bent over his microphone, sweat beading on his forehead, he watched the news scroll across his screen. He'd lost his main site to traffic last night, but his backup stream was rolling, and his followers were starving. "They've gone and done it," he snarled into the mic, his voice a gravel-laced whip. "Suspended our guy, Travis Malone, just for standing up to the woke mob. This isn't discipline. This is a witch hunt, a modern-day lynching by the PC police. We won't let this stand." Carl thundered, slamming his fist onto the desk, the sound echoing through his studio. "Meet me at the precinct, noon sharp. Bring your flags, your courage, bring it all." The stream cut to static as his followers roared in response, phone lines flaring up with calls he didn't have time to answer. By 11:30 a.m., a crowd had gathered outside the Jacksonville PD, over 200 strong. Confederate flags snapped in the hot breeze as voices chanted Travis's name like a battle hymn. What kind of city cheers for a thug like him? Patrice saw the protest unfold via a news alert, a live stream capturing Carl front and center, megaphone in hand, his bald head red and blistered in the sun. screaming, "Reinstate Travis or we burn this city down." She stood at her hotel window, the river below shimmering like molten steel, and for the first time, felt a flicker of doubt. Sure, she'd won the suspension, but this was something else. A force she hadn't anticipated. She called Lena, her deputy, her voice calm despite her racing pulse. "Get surveillance on that crowd. Names, faces, everything," she ordered. Lena grunted in reply, and Patrice ended the call. Her mind was already shifting through strategies, contingencies, responses, pressure points. She'd expected resistance, but not this fast, not this loud. She was reaching for her blazer when a sharp crash tore through her thoughts. A brick shattered the window, glass exploding across the carpet, a jagged hole gaping where the pain had been. She dropped low, instincts taking over, and crawled toward the debris. Attached to the brick was a note scrawled in thick black marker. "Go back where you came from." Her breath caught, not from fear, but from recognition. This wasn't just about Travis anymore. Someone else had entered the game. The brick sat heavy in her palm, a crude message that turned her early victory sour. She rose, brushing shards from her slacks, and stared at the broken skyline through the shattered glass. The protest outside raged on. Carl's voice buzzed from the live stream, distant but growing. The crowd had swelled to over 300. Their flags were a sea of defiance. Online, the video had reached 120,000 views. The suspension had ignited both fury and praise. Justice served clashed with Travis is a victim. She'd thought her opening move had landed cleanly, but now the ground was shifting under her feet. The note crumpled in her fist, a warning of worse things coming. Someone was targeting her, and they weren't finished yet. She grabbed her phone, Travis's file still open, and scanned through the list of his known allies. Names she'd soon be forced to memorize. Had she underestimated how deep Jacksonville's rot ran? Drop a comment with number 1 if you think Patrice should have seen this coming, or number 2 if Travis is just getting what he deserves. Smash that like button if you're backing her fight, and don't forget to subscribe. This chaos, it's only just begun. The morning sun scorched Jacksonville's streets, turning the asphalt into a wavering haze. But inside the precinct, Travis Malone felt a cold surge as he barreled through the double doors, his lawyer trailing behind like a ghost. It was 8:15 a.m., not even 24 hours since his suspension. His bloodshot eyes blazed with fury and smugness. Carl Vance's protest had swelled to 400 overnight, a frenzied mass that camped outside City Hall, their chants shaking the windows until Mayor Harold Grayson folded. Travis clutched the reinstatement letter, fresh off the printer, the mayor's signature still wet. It had taken one furious call from his attorney, Ed Kessler, a wiry bulldog with a knack for loopholes. Kessler had spun the suspension as overreaction to shaky footage. No formal hearing, no due process. Grayson, sweating bullets, cracked under the pressure and signed the letter by dawn. Now, Travis stormed into the locker room, slapped the letter on a table and bellowed, "Back in action, boys. Told you they couldn't touch me." The younger officers exchanged uneasy looks. A few murmured congratulations, but the room thickened with something sour, a defiance that clung to him like smoke. Patrice stepped into her new office at 9 a.m. sharp, a corner suite on the precinct's 3rd floor. Her name was already etched onto a brass plaque beside the door. She'd spent the night duct taping cardboard over her hotel's broken window. The brick's note now tucked into her briefcase like a grim souvenir. The office stank of old coffee and mildew, but she barely noticed. Her focus snapped to the mess awaiting her. Papers scattered like confetti, drawers wrenched open, and carved into the desk surface, deep and jagged, the N-word. Her stomach clenched, not in shock, but in grim recognition. This was hate that didn't bother hiding. She ran her fingers over the word, her nails catching on the splintered wood, a brutal reminder of what she was really fighting. She took a photo evidence. Then she called Lena. "Run a full audit. Every officer who's worked with Travis. I want names." "No problem, Chief," Lena replied without hesitation. Patrice hung up, her heart steady, her resolve steel. She would burn the rot out of this place. One name at a time. Outside, the city buzzed. News of Travis's return spread like wildfire. The video hit 150,000 views. Carl Vance's stream looped protest footage, his voice triumphant. "We did it, folks. Travis is back." Because real Americans fought back. Social media fractured deeper. One user raged, "This is what's wrong with America." Thousands liked the post. Another shot back, "Good. She's the problem, not him." Patrice's online support began to thin, drowned by Carl's legion of trolls. She left her office to grab coffee from a vending machine. Halfway down the hall, a young officer jogged up to her, his face pale. "Chief, you need to see this." He led her outside to the parking lot. Her SUV sat crumpled, the driver's side crushed inward, glass strewn across the pavement like shattered ice. A squad car idled nearby, 2 officers leaning on it, arms crossed, grinning. "Looks like a prank gone wrong," one of them said with a smirk. "One," said one of them, his voice oozing with fake sympathy, while the other snorted, nudging a shard of windshield with his boot. "Kids these days, huh?" Patrice's gaze sharpened, her fists clenched tight at her sides, but her tone stayed frosty. "File the report. Now." They shrugged and strolled away, leaving her alone with the wreckage. The prank landed like a cheap shot, worse than the brick, a warning spelled out in mangled metal. She called a tow truck, her breath clouding in the thick heat, and snapped more photos. The crushed hood glared back like a provocation. Back inside, Lena's email pinged. A list of 12 officers connected to Travis, each with a record full of warnings and quiet passes. Patrice forwarded the list to Maya Torres, the journalist, with a simple note, "Dig deeper." By noon, the station buzzed with rumors. Travis's return had sparked dry kindling. He strutted through the corridors, badge shining, barking orders at rookies who scrambled to obey. What he didn't know was that Patrice had seen the desk, had seen the car, and was already orchestrating his next downfall. But Carl Vance knew. From his stifling studio, he watched the protest disperse, his audience returning to their routines, and decided to twist the knife. He hit record, his voice a venomous hiss. That woman, whoever she is, set Travis up, framed him with that video, played the victim to snatch his badge. "She's the real racist, folks, and we've got proof." He posted a blurry still from the fair, Patrice's face circled in red, captioned, "The real threat to Jacksonville." The lie took hold fast. An online petition to have the mystery woman fired racked up 5,000 signatures in a matter of hours. Patrice saw it on her phone while sitting in her vandalized office. The words blurred, unreal. 5,000 strangers wanted her gone. For spit she didn't throw, a brawl she never initiated. She refreshed the page. The number jumped to 6,000. Carl's followers swarmed, hungry to spread the smear. "She's a plant," one comment read. "Probably not even from here," spat another. The video had hit 170,000 views. The story was mutating, her dignity torn apart by a man who'd never once looked her in the eye. She stood, pacing the room, her gaze flicking to the slur carved into her desk, its crude grooves reflecting the venom rising outside. The image of the smashed SUV replayed in her mind. The officer's smirks, the brick's message, and now this, a city turning on her before she'd had a chance to lead. She grabbed her briefcase, the audit list glowing on her screen, and marched toward the stairwell. Her pace quickened. She'd hoped for a slow start, a chance to assess. But Travis and Carl had yanked that choice from her hands. This wasn't a dust-up anymore. It was war. By 3 p.m., reporters flooded the precinct parking lot, tipped off by the petition's spike. Their lenses trained on the front doors, waiting. Travis posed for the cameras, grinning like a champ, his lawyer beside him spinning tales of injustice. "Officer Malone is being used as a scapegoat," Ed Kessler purred into a mic, his voice slick. "This isn't about justice, it's politics." Inside, Patrice watched from her window, her SUV still cordoned off below, a monument to the morning's hate. She called Grayson, her tone sharp and flat. This reinstatement was a mistake. Fix it, or I go public with the audit. He stammered, whining through the speaker. I can't. Not with Vance's people. They'll riot. She hung up, jaw clenched. She knew he'd fold under pressure again. The petition hit 7,000. Carl's fiction now gospel to a chunk of the city. Patrice felt the walls close in. She hadn't come here to be prey. She came to lead, to heal. Now they were painting her as the villain. The gouges in her desk stared back, the air thick with the bitterness of cold coffee and defiance. The next attack wouldn't be symbolic. She could feel it building. Patrice Coleman stood in her vandalized office, the late sun slanting through the blinds, casting jagged shadows across the carved insult. It was 4 p.m., the air heavy with the tang of stale brew and the dull murmur of the precinct beneath her. But her mind was locked in. The petition had ballooned to 8,000 signatures. Carl Vance's fabrication infecting the internet. The video now over 200,000 views. An uncontrollable monster. Her SUV's wreckage still sat outside, a warped trophy of hate. And Travis's smug presence echoed down the halls, a symbol of the slap she refused to let slide. She reached for her phone, her thumb hovering over Maya Torres's contact. The journalist was her last clean thread in this web of rot. She pressed call, her voice low but urgent. I've got something for you. Travis's record. 15 years of buried complaints, cover-ups, the works. Run it tonight. Maya sucked in a breath, her excitement sparking through the line. Are you sure, Patrice? This'll blow up. Patrice's lips tightened, not in a smile but with cold resolve. That's the idea. She sent the email, the full audit attached, then leaned back. Her chair creaked. Now she waited. At 6 p.m., Maya's piece dropped like a hammer. Jacksonville cops' violent past exposed. The reign of Travis Malone. It hit hard. 37 complaints. A black teen choked unconscious in 2012. A pregnant woman shoved in 2015. A trail of fists, slurs, and ignored warnings. All buried by a complicit precinct. Maya's prose burned. Each sentence fueled outrage. Screens lit up across the city. Hashtags flipped from hashtag reinstate Travis to hashtag fire1. Protesters gathered outside the precinct. This time, not Carl's flag-waving army, but black residents, students, mothers. Their signs screamed, "No more." Patrice stood at her window as their chants vibrated through the glass. They drowned out the noise of the petition. The tide had turned. She felt it. She dialed Lena. Prep a press release. Malone's done. Lena let out a rare chuckle. You're a storm, Chief. Patrice ended the call, her chest tight, but not with fear, with hope. Had she finally shifted the ground? Travis saw the article while halfway through a beer at a dive bar, a bar on the outskirts of town. The TV above the counter flickered with Maya's headline, Travis's mugshot glaring beside it. His bottle slipped from his fingers, shattering on the grimy floor, amber liquid spreading around his boots as the bar fell silent. Every patron turned to stare. What the hell is this? He growled, grabbing his phone. The screen lit up with notifications, texts from friends, a missed call from Ed Kessler, his lawyer, and a flood of hate messages from strangers. You're a disgrace, one read. Rot in jail, another spat. He stormed outside, the muggy night air slapping his face. Dialing Carl, his voice was a snarl. They've got my file. Fix this. Carl, back in his studio, barked into the phone. Stay calm. We'll control the story. But Travis was far from calm. He kicked a trash bin, the clanging metal echoing down the alley. His world was crumbling. Outside, the protests had grown to 300 people. A tidal wave of outrage crashing against his crumbling victory. At 8 p.m., Patrice made her entrance. The same bar, her suit still sharp despite the long day. The room hushed the moment she walked in, eyes locking on Travis slumped in a booth, a fresh beer trembling in his grasp. She slid into the seat opposite him, her presence like a thunderclap in the low light. Leaning forward, her voice was cold steel. You're finished, Malone. That file is only the beginning. Walk away, or I'll bury you." Travis blinked, mind sluggish from shock and alcohol, then sneered, lips curling like a wounded animal. "You don't scare me, lady. You're nothing." She rose, towering over him. Her shadow swallowed the booth. "Keep telling yourself that." She walked out, the door slamming behind her. The bar's customers murmured among themselves as Travis stared into his beer, Maya's article searing itself into his mind. Outside, the protest surged to 400 strong. A wave of fury that felt like her army. And for a fleeting second, she wondered, had she already won? But the night wasn't done. At 11 p.m., the hammer dropped. Sirens pierced the quiet as a SWAT team burst into Patrice's temporary rental, 3 blocks from her hotel. The door splintered under a battering ram. She wasn't there, still at the precinct, but her neighbor's frantic call yanked her from a nap on her office couch. "They're ripping your place apart," the old man croaked. She rushed over, arriving to a scene of chaos. Furniture upended, books strewn, clothes tossed everywhere. The SWAT leader, a bulky man with a buzz cut, smirked when she flashed her badge. "Anonymous tip, Chief. Drugs. Had to check it out. They found nothing. Not a trace. But the damage was done." Reporters swarmed, tipped off by someone. Cameras captured the wreckage. By midnight, headlines screamed, "New chief under investigation." Carl Vance pounced. His podcast went live despite the hour, his voice thick with glee. "See? She's the real criminal. Set up Travis, now trying to hide her own mess." The protests wavered, the crowd shrinking to 200. Confusion spread like smoke. Patrice stood in her ransacked apartment, fists clenched. SWAT boot prints smudged her hardwood floor. A deeper violation than the vandalized car, more personal than the brick. Her phone buzzed. Maya's voice was tight. "They're flipping the story, Patrice. Are you okay?" She nodded, though Maya couldn't see. Her throat burned. "I'll fix it." She ended the call and started putting pieces together. Travis's allies, spooked by the exposé, had pulled strings. The SWAT raid, a desperate counterattack. The video had hit 300,000 views, but the story had warped. Her win twisted into something bitter. She picked up a broom, sweeping shattered glass from a broken frame. Her niece's photo stared up through the shards. The weight of the war returned. She had struck first, thought she'd won. But they had hit back harder, twisting her weapon into their shield. The precinct loomed large in her thoughts. A nest of vipers she had underestimated. The next move had to be louder, stronger, or everything she came to rebuild would fall apart. Drop a comment with 1, if you think Patrice's leak was worth the risk, or 2, if Travis's camp crossed a line with the raid. Hit like if the twist shocked you, and don't forget to subscribe because the stakes just skyrocketed. Who's really behind the SWAT ambush? And what will Patrice do next? Patrice Coleman stood amid the ruins of her apartment as dawn filtered through cracked blinds, illuminating the debris left by the SWAT team. It was 6 a.m., and the air smelled of torn paper and broken wood. But her focus was razor sharp. Phone pressed to her ear, she paced past overturned chairs. The video had spiked to 350,000 views overnight. Carl Vance's lies were turning her exposé into a boomerang. But she had spent the pre-dawn hours digging and struck gold. Security footage from the building's lobby, emailed by a nervous landlord, showed no anonymous tipster, just a squad car pulling up at 10:50 p.m., moments before the raid. She sent the footage to Maya Torres with a simple note. Proof it was staged. Publish by 7. By morning, Maya's follow-up article hit the web like a lightning bolt. Chief targeted. SWAT raid a lie. The grainy footage showed smirking officers approaching the building without cause. Social media roared back to life. Hashtag Justice for Patrice began trending. The raid stank and the public knew it. A flicker of control sparked inside her. She tightened her jaw and dialed Harold Grayson. The mayor picked up on the third ring, his voice groggy, torn from sleep by a crisis he couldn't avoid. "What now, Coleman?" he grumbled. She didn't let him finish. "Your SWAT team wrecked my home on a fake tip. Maya's got the footage. It's already live. Issue a public apology, or I'll sue this city into next year." Grayson fumbled through feeble excuses, the rustling of sheets nearly drowning him out. But by 8:30 a.m., he stood on the precinct steps, cameras flashing, his tie askew as he muttered, "We regret the incident and will conduct a full investigation." Patrice observed from her office, the slur carved into her desk a silent insult. She nodded once, a hunter catching scent of prey. Then she dialed Lena, her voice sharp as a blade. "Suspend 3 of Travis's boys from the audit list. Immediately." Lena delivered by 9. The paperwork was filed. Badges confiscated. Officers Reed, Callahan, and Diaz, each with dirt connecting them to Travis, were benched. The station buzzed with murmurs, speculation curling through corridors like smoke. Patrice leaned back, her chair creaking beneath her, the taste of victory fresh on her tongue. Had she finally tamed the beast? Travis got word at 10, sprawled across his couch, a pounding hangover behind his eyes, the TV blaring Maya's latest exposé. His phone lit up, texts from Reed. "Suspended. She's coming for us." He hurled a beer bottle at the screen, glass shattering, his roar echoing through the thin walls of his duplex. "Hell no," he snarled, stomping across the stained carpet. His badge, heavy in his pocket, felt like a lifeline he'd barely reclaimed, and now his crew was crumbling. He called Carl Vance, voice venomous. "She's picking us off. Do something." Carl, sweating in his studio, SC still busted, growled back, "I'm on it. Lay low." But Travis didn't lay low. He grabbed his keys and tore off toward City Hall, his truck screeching into a parking space. Inside, a council meeting droned on, fluorescent lights glaring as a dozen officials debated numbers. At 11, Travis stormed in, Carl at his side. The room froze as he jabbed a finger toward the dais. "She's pulling a black power grab, ruining decent cops. Are you going to let her?" His voice boomed, spit flying. Carl followed up. "She's the real danger." The council, a mix of tight-lipped faces and nervous glances, writhed under Travis's anger and the growing mob outside. 50 strong now, Carl's listeners waved signs. "Stop the witch hunt." Patrice wasn't present. She was still at the precinct, combing through audit files. But at 11:30, her phone pinged. A live stream showed Travis's rant, the protest swelling to 75. Her gut twisted, not from fear, but from the grim realization. Her suspensions had ignited a powder keg. By noon, the council buckled. A shaky vote passed, her authority frozen pending a formal review. Grayson's signature sprawled across the order, his cowardice glowing like neon. Patrice slammed her fist on the desk. The carved insult bit into her knuckles. She called Lena. "They've grounded me. I want everything on that council." Lena's voice sharpened. "This is war, Chief." Patrice hung up. Her pulse pounded. The victory she'd savored curdled in her mouth. The system had shown its teeth. She thought she'd delivered the blow. Yet they'd countered, fast and brutal. That night, at 10:15 p.m., the air in Jacksonville thickened with smoke, its bitter stench slicing through the humid dark. Jamal, Patrice's brother, owned a barber shop on the west side. A low brick building, its flickering neon open sign barely cutting through the gloom. He'd locked up at 9, heading home to his wife and kids. The place stood silent, its chairs lined like watchmen. At 10:20, a pickup truck pulled up. 3 figures emerged, faces cloaked in shadows. They doused the walls in gasoline, the liquid glistening under the streetlights. A match ignited. Flames exploded to life, devouring the shop in a ravenous blaze. Glass cracked, metal groaned. The neon sign crumpled into a puddle of sparks. Neighbors screamed. Phones dialed 911, but police were slow. They arrived at 10:45, sirens wailing in the distance as the shop collapsed. Patrice got the call at 11. Jamal's voice cracked with panic. "They burned it, Trish. It's all gone." She sped across the city, her tires squealing to a stop as fire scorched her face from a distance. Firefighters battled the inferno, but it raged too wild. She found Jamal near the curb, hands in his face, shoulders shaking while ash fell like snow. A witness, trembling, eyes wide with fear. A frail woman clutching her robe, stammered. They said it was for her. Patrice's blood froze. The word stabbed deep, linking the attack directly to her. She wrapped her arms around Jamal, his sobs soaking into her shoulder. "I'll fix this," she whispered. But the promise felt paper-thin, the flames mocking her resolve. Officers stood around, expressions blank. One muttered, "Probably insurance fraud," his smirk slicing her like a knife. She snapped photos of the ruins, her hands unsteady, and called Maya. "Jamal's shop is gone. Arson. Tie it to Travis's guys." Maya's voice broke. "Jesus, Patrice. I'm on it." By midnight, the video had hit 400,000 views. The arson was trending, but Carl's podcast fired back. "She's faking it." Sympathy stunt. The city fractured further. Patrice's victory began to feel more like a wound. She stood in the wreckage, the air thick with soot. Her brother's dream reduced to scorched beams and melted clippers. The council's freeze echoed in her mind. A change she hadn't anticipated. Now this, a strike more vicious than the raid. Personal. Violent. She had cleared her name. Knocked 3 of Travis's loyalists out of power. Thought she had the upper hand. But the system retaliated, relentless and cold-blooded. Her win turned to smoke. She kicked a half-melted chair. This clang rang out in the silence. She felt the weight of unseen eyes watching, judging, waiting. The precinct rose in her thoughts again. A bastion of enemies barely dented. This wasn't about one officer anymore, or one leak. It was war, and they'd fired the first real shot. She wiped her eyes, the burn of smoke and sorrow blurring her vision, and made a vow. She would strike back. Harder. Patrice Coleman stood in the soft light of a Jacksonville church basement, air steeped in the scent of worn hymnals and strong coffee. Her voice rang steady, cutting through the murmurs of 50 gathered community leaders. It was 7 p.m., the day after Jamal's shop was reduced to ash, the fire still fresh in her bones. As she faced the crowd, pastors, activists, barbershop owners, their faces were lined with fatigue and defiance. She had summoned them here. Her authority had been frozen by the council, her brother's business destroyed by hate, and now she needed an army. "They think they've shut me down," she said, her hands gripping the edge of a folding table. Her suit was wrinkled from a sleepless night. "They torched my family's dreams, locked me out, but I'm not finished. We march to City Hall tomorrow, 500 deep, and make them hear us." Her eyes blazed as she met each gaze, and the room erupted, fists pounding on tables, voices raised in unison. "Yes," shouted Pastor Evans, a wiry man with graying temples, standing up. "We've got your back, Chief. This ends today." By 8 p.m., the plan was solid. At dawn, downtown would see a wave of resistance they couldn't ignore. The next morning at 6:30, the sun climbed above the St. Johns River, casting a bruised orange light as Patrice led the march. 500 strong, their footsteps pounded the pavement in unison. Signs bobbed over the crowd, "Justice for Jamal," "End the freeze." The air crackled with chants, a blend of fury and hope. Patrice walked at the front, head high, Jamal beside her, his eyes red but resolute. They reached City Hall by 7 o'clock. The building's mirrored surface reflected their numbers, a wave Harold Grayson couldn't outrun. Reporters swarmed in, cameras live, and the council peeked nervously through windows as the crowd swelled past 600. Word spread quickly. By 8 o'clock, Grayson stepped out, voice shaking through a megaphone. "We'll lift the freeze. Chief Coleman is reinstated." The marchers erupted. Patrice's chest rose with cautious triumph as she squeezed Jamal's hand. The video hit 450,000 views. Maya's arson coverage was trending. Patrice thought maybe she was reclaiming control. Maybe this was the turning point. Travis Malone watched from a bar, the television screen flickering dimly. His knuckles were white around a glass of whiskey. It was 9 a.m. The precinct felt deserted, his crew suspended, his badge now an empty prize. Patrice's win played on repeat. He'd barely slept. Carl Vance's latest podcast still looped in his earbuds. She's staging a takeover. The bar was nearly empty except for a grizzled bartender who didn't glance up. Travis's fury boiled over. The glass shattered in his fist, blood trickling from his palm. He stormed out, the morning heat slamming into him. He drove to the precinct, tires screeching as he parked. A news crew lingered, mics live. At 9:30, Travis ambushed them. His uniform rumpled, voice booming. "She's a liar," he barked, shoving past a reporter and spitting on the ground. The act was caught on live TV, a grotesque punctuation to his fury. "She's destroying us, and you're all blind." The clip went viral, hitting 500,000 views by noon. Grayson panicked, called an emergency session, and fired Travis on the spot. His badge was stripped for good. Patrice heard the news at 1 p.m., standing in her office. The slur etched into her desk a bitter reminder of the fight. Lena rushed in, breathless. "He's out, Chief. Grayson let him go." Patrice nodded, a tight smile forming as the chants of the morning echoed in her head. The precinct buzzed with unease, officers avoiding her eye. But she felt it, the shift. A crack in the wall she'd been pounding since day one. She called Maya. Her voice was calm but firm. "Travis is gone. Hit it hard." Maya's report dropped at 2 o'clock. Racist cop fired after spitting incident. The video looped online. The city's anger climbed past 600,000 views. Protests surged again. Not Carl's followers this time, but her supporters. 800 strong now. Their voices lifted her battered spirit. She exhaled, the pressure lifting just a little. Maybe it was over. Travis was out. His venom drained. His crew dismantled. She had won. Hadn't she? 3 p.m. The phone rang again. Jamal's voice, calm. Picking up Kesha from school. "We good." She smiled, this time a real one, and hung up. The day's heat was starting to break. A rare moment of stillness. That peace shattered at 4:15. Jamal called again, his voice broken, frantic. "They took her, Trish. Kesha's gone." Patrice's heart stopped. The phone nearly slipped from her hand as she bolted upright. The room spun. Jamal sobbed through the line, explaining in fragments. He'd parked at the school, walked in to get Kesha. She should have run to him, all 10 years of her, but she never showed. A teacher saw a van peel away, a hooded man dragging her inside. A note left on the curb. "Resign. She's next." Patrice tore through traffic, arriving by 4:30. Jamal lay crumpled on the sidewalk. Officers milled about, indifferent. Radios crackled, but no urgency. She snatched the note from the ground, hands trembling. The message sliced through her like a blade. "Travis? Carl? Both?" A revenge move so vile it eclipsed the arson. "Find her!" She barked at the officers, her voice sharp. One of them shrugged. "Kids run off sometimes." She seethed and called Lena, her tone now deadly. "Every camera, every lead. Now." The video hit 650,000 views. Travis's firing drowned in whispers about Kesha's fate. Patrice stood beside Jamal, his tears soaking into the pavement. Kesha's pink school bag lay abandoned nearby, its straps screaming louder than any protest. The march, the firing. Her momentum crumbled with this blow. They had struck her heart. She thought she'd won, but they rewrote the rules. She scanned the street, eyes burning. The cop's indifference was a wall she couldn't climb. Maya arrived, her camera already rolling. "Patrice, what's the plan?" a voice asked, trembling. She didn't respond. Her mind was racing, the note crushed tightly in her hand. This wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a massacre, and they had taken her blood. She'd battled with paperwork, with protests, but this was survival. The precinct loomed in her thoughts, a nest of vipers she'd only just begun to dismantle. And now, she saw it clearly. This was their final move, a blow designed to shatter her completely. She embraced Jamal, whispering with quiet ferocity, "I'll bring her home." Her voice cut through the grief, cold and focused. The fight wasn't over. Drop a comment with number 1 if you think Patrice's rally pushed them too far, or number 2 if Travis's firing made this retaliation inevitable. Smash the like button if this twist caught you off guard, and hit subscribe because Kesha's clock is ticking. What's Patrice willing to sacrifice to save her niece? And who's really behind this merciless attack? Patrice Coleman stood on the curb outside the school, the late afternoon sun dipping low and casting stretched shadows over Kesha's forsaken pink backpack. It was 4:45 p.m. The air buzzed with the hum of distant cars, and Jamal sat in stunned silence, his face buried in his hands as police idled nearby, their radios muttering static. The note, "Resign or she's next," burned a hole in her pocket. A poisonous ultimatum that turned her niece's abduction into a weapon hanging over her cause. She called Maya Torres at 4:35, her voice sharp as glass. "Jamal's daughter's missing. Tip came from Carl's circle, trace it." Already on site, Maya nodded, lowering her camera. Her eyes were razor-focused. "Got something. Warehouse off Duval. Vance used it back in his trucking days." Patrice didn't wait. She grabbed Jamal, shoved him into her sedan, and sped off, tires screeching, the precinct's apathy fading in the rearview mirror. By 5 p.m., she reached the warehouse district, a maze of rust-streaked metal and crumbling asphalt. Her heart thundered. A dented van sat parked sideways near a sagging building, its windows darkened. She cut the engine and signaled Jamal to stay put. His eyes were wide with fear but trusted her. She moved, silent as breath, boots crunching softly over the gravel. At the side door, she paused. It groaned open under her grip. Inside, the stench of grease and decay clung to the air. Faint light filtered through shattered skylights. And there, center of the room, was Kesha, tied to a chair, her small body shaking, duct tape stretched over her mouth. 2 hooded figures hovered near her. One paced, gripping a crowbar. The other scrolled his phone, speaking low with smug confidence. "Carl says she'll cave by sunrise." The crowbar man grunted. Patrice's blood boiled. Her niece's muffled cries lit a fire in her veins. She scanned the room, spotted a rusted metal pipe leaning against the wall, and moved like shadow. Her breath even, her grip tight. She struck fast. The pipe crashed into the phone guy's head. He collapsed with a grunt. The second man spun, swinging, but she ducked, driving the pipe into his knee, then smashing it against his jaw. He crumpled. Blood spilled across the grimy floor. Patrice ripped the tape from Kesha's mouth. The girl sobbed, her voice breaking free. Patrice untied the ropes and pulled her close. "I knew you'd come," Kesha whispered. Patrice held her tight, tears stinging, and carried her to the van. Jamal burst out, sweeping Kesha into his arms, his voice choked with relief. They piled into the sedan and sped off as sirens finally screamed in the distance. Too late to claim victory. Back at the precinct by 6 p.m., Patrice stormed in. Kesha was home safe with Jamal. She called Maya. "Livestream this. Carl's men kidnapped her. I have proof." Maya set up fast. The camera rolled in Patrice's office as she held up the note, her voice thunderous. "This is what they do. Kidnap children to silence me. Carl Vance ordered it. I'll prove it." The stream hit 10,000 viewers in minutes. The video climbed past 700,000 views. Hashtags exploded. Arrest Vance trending as fury swept online. She felt a swell of triumph. Kesha's face fueled her fire. This was a fatal blow, wasn't it? Travis Malone, disgraced and seething, watched from a motel. The TV flickered, Patrice's face glowing on screen. His fists clenched so tightly his nails pierced skin. It was 7 p.m. The memory of his firing still roared. The spit at the bar replayed in his mind. A public disgrace. He'd called Carl earlier, desperate for a counterstrike. But now Kesha was safe. Carl's name in the mud. By 8 o'clock, Travis stumbled into the precinct, reeking of whiskey. He stood at Patrice's office door, slurring, "Chief, I'm sorry, all right? I didn't know about the kid. Just let me off, please." Patrice stared him down, cold. the desk between them still carved with the slur he left behind, a monument to his hate. "You mean nothing to me now," she said flatly and waved him away. The door slammed as he shuffled off, head lowered. The stream passed 20,000 views. Carl's radio show cut mid-broadcast. Sponsors vanished. Panic rippled through his network. Patrice leaned back, her chair groaning. Had she broken them? Had she finally shattered their hold? That illusion burst at 8:30. An explosion rocked the precinct lobby. A thunderous boom that shattered windows and rattled the entire building. Glass rained down. Screams tore through the night. Patrice bolted from her chair. The live stream blinked to static. She raced downstairs, boots crunching debris. Smoke curled through the halls. 2 officers lay dead, their bodies mangled. Blood soaked the tile. Others staggered, coughing, faces smeared with ash. She grabbed a wide-eyed rookie. "What happened?" "Package, front desk," he stammered. "It just blew." In the rubble, she saw it. A scrap of paper, edges singed. "This is for Travis." Her stomach dropped. The words hit like a blow to the ribs, twisting the bombing into a revenge act, a new narrative meant to frame her as the catalyst. Outside, sirens wailed. Fire trucks rolled in. Reporters swarmed. The video crossed 750,000 views. Precinct bomb trended. Carl's voice already echoing on a rogue livestream. She brought this upon them. The lobby smoldered. A war zone she'd walked into, and she realized her rescue had set this off. A strike so brutal it overshadowed the kidnapping. Patrice stood in the middle of the wreckage, the air thick with ash and sorrow, her hands shaking as she helped a wounded officer onto a stretcher. The echo of the live stream faded, her triumph over Carl and Travis now buried beneath devastation. A counterstrike that turned her victory to rubble. She had saved Kesha, shamed Travis, thought she'd won. But they had answered with death, shifting blame onto her shoulders. The note in her pocket, crumpled and charred, mirrored the message found with the bomb. The pattern was undeniable. Every gain she fought for was met with greater brutality. Unrelenting, she looked around the lobby, medics rushing through, their boots splashing in blood. Fallen officers' badges gleamed in the debris. All eyes were on her. Cops, reporters, a city measuring her worth. The precinct, once a symbol of safety, had become a snare. This was their checkmate, designed to crush her spirit. Patrice wiped soot from her face, stood tall, and vowed to keep fighting, even as the flames jeered her last sliver of hope. At 9 p.m., Patrice Coleman stood in the charred remains of the precinct lobby, acrid smoke still swirling around her. Her boots crunched over broken glass as medics wheeled stretchers past. The blast had claimed 2 lives, injured a dozen. In her hand, the singed note read, "This is for Travis," a dagger in plain sight. The live stream had crossed 800,000 views. The bombing was trending. The city staggered, but Patrice didn't blink. At 8:40, she had called Lena. Her voice was steel threaded through the chaos. "Forensics needs to link the bomb to Carl's people," she demanded. By 10 o'clock, the report arrived. Fresh chemical traces matched accelerants used in the arson at Jamal's barbershop. Fingerprints on the package belonged to a known Vance supporter, Bobby Tate, a wiry ex-con. Patrice marched into the evidence room, cool and clinical, and verified the prints herself. Her hands were calm as she bagged the evidence. By 10:30, she led a raid on Tate's seedy bar hideout. 5 officers burst through the door, weapons drawn. Tate and 4 others were dragged out in cuffs, their protests drowned by the wail of sirens. She locked eyes with Tate, his bloodshot gaze defiant. "You're done," she hissed. The arrests made headlines. By 11 p.m. Maya Torres was live on the scene, capturing Patrice's soot-streaked face in the background. Chief Coleman links bombing to Vance supporters, the headline blared. The forensic report leaked, sending shockwaves through the city. The video climbed past 850,000 views. But the protest crowd swelling at midnight wasn't Carl's mob this time. It was hers. 500 people gathered outside City Hall, chanting justice now. Patrice stood by her office window, the old desk scarred with slurs, watching them. Their signs were a forest of fury. Arrest Carl. End the hate. At 12:15 a.m., she called Harold Grayson. Her voice was sharp, deliberate. I've got Tate. The bomb ties back to Vance. Reinforce my authority, or this city burns. Grayson, shaken, muttered, Okay, you're reinstated. She ended the call and fired off a reform bill to the council. Mandatory training, oversight boards. Her heart pounded, but she felt a flicker of control return. Travis was gone, hiding in the shadows. Carl's network was fracturing. Maybe, just maybe, she had taken the reins at last. By dawn, the city applauded. The video surpassed 900,000 views. Chief Coleman was surging. Her willpower became a beacon to some and a threat to others. At 6 a.m., Patrice sipped lukewarm coffee in her office. The reform bill's draft glowed on her screen. Felt like she'd turned the tide. But Carl Vance wasn't finished. By 7 a.m., he was live on a rogue podcast, broadcasting from a makeshift studio after his suspension. His voice was bitter and rough. She's a tyrant. Those arrests? Lies. She bombed her own precinct to frame us. His words lit a fuse among his followers. By 8 a.m., his audience had grown to 1,000. Furious, fueled by his lies. Storm her house. End this now, he shouted. By 9 a.m., a mob had formed, over 1,000 people, not just with flags but with torches and Molotovs in hand. They marched from the riverfront to her rental, an unassuming 2-story home she'd moved into after fleeing the hotel. At 9:15, while she was at the precinct briefing Lena, Jamal called, his voice panicked. Trish, they're here. Fire. Patrice tore through traffic, arriving at 9:30 to a nightmare. Flames curled up the siding. Windows shattered. Molotovs sailed through the air, exploding into fireballs. She leapt from her car, smoke burning her throat, and sprinted to the back entrance. The crowd roared, Burn her out! Inside, she grabbed a fire extinguisher and fought the blaze in the kitchen, her heart hammering. She searched for a way out as the mob swelled to 1,200, their fury deafening. She slipped out the back, coughing, her clothes scorched. Her home, a place of warmth, of Kesha's drawings and Jamal's visits, was burning. Sirens screamed, late again. She stumbled into a neighbor's yard and called Maya. They torched my place. Go live. Maya's stream launched at 10 a.m. The footage blew up, 950,000 views and rising. But Carl's lie held sway. Half the city cheered the flames. 10:15, Grayson called again. His voice trembled. You're a liability, Coleman. Your badge is revoked. Public safety. She froze. The phone slipped from her hand. Her world collapsed as the fire roared louder. She stood barefoot in a neighbor's lawn, the inferno casting a hellish glow across her face, watching her home disintegrate, beams snapping, memories swallowed in the blaze. The precinct buzzed in her mind, a fortress she had fought to secure, now a trap that had spat her out. She'd pinned the bomb, arrested 5, thought she'd triumphed, but Carl's mob retaliated harder, thousands of torches against her lone voice. Grayson's betrayal was the final blow. Her badge, her shield, gone. The reform bill was just a shadow on her screen as the crowd scattered, their laughter echoing. She grabbed her phone. The arson livestream had hit 20,000 views, and Carl's sinister cackle came through a bystander's radio. She's finished. The video hit 1 million views, marking the milestone of her destruction, and she sank to her knees, the grass damp beneath her, the fight slipping away. They had taken her niece, her home, her power, each blow harder than the last. She wondered if she had underestimated the beast entirely. Patrice rose, wiping ash from her eyes. Her sedan was the only survivor, parked blocks away, the mob's roar fading into the night. She had saved Kesha, defeated Carl's crew, but losing her home, her badge. This was a defeat she couldn't escape. The precinct loomed in her thoughts, a den of snakes now laughing, and she knew Travis was somewhere lurking, his shadow stretching over this chaos. She'd been a chief, a warrior, but now she was a fugitive in her own war. The city was divided, her allies dwindling. She clutched her phone as Maya's voice buzzed through. "Where are you?" Patrice didn't answer, her mind racing, calculating her next move. They had burned her out, but she wasn't ash yet. This wasn't over. Drop a comment with number 1 if you think Patrice's arrests provoked this mob too much, or number 2 if Grayson's betrayal was the real gut punch. Hit like if this fire's got you shook, and tap subscribe because her fight's far from over. What's a chief without a badge do when the city turns on her? And who's waiting in the wings to strike next? Patrice Coleman crouched in the back seat of Maya Torres's battered hatchback. The night air seeped through a cracked window, and the smoke-scented remnants of her burned suit lingered in the car. It was 11 p.m., and the city's pulse was a distant hum as they parked in a shadowed alley 5 blocks from the precinct. Her badge was a memory, stripped by Grayson's cowardice. The video had surpassed 1.5 million views. The mob's fire was trending, but she wasn't broken. At 10:30, she had called Mir, her voice a growl. "We're hacking Carl's podcast. I've got proof he paid for the bomb." Maya, her eyes flashing with adrenaline, had rigged up a laptop in the car, fingers flying over the keys as she breached Carl's rogue stream through a backdoor from a source at his old station. By 11:15, they had spliced in audio Carl's voice, recorded during a burner call Patrice had traced. "Tate's bomb cost me $5,000, but it shut her up." At 11:30, they hit play, the podcast cutting mid-rant as Carl's confession boomed through his 1,000 listeners' ears, a digital dagger that turned his flock against him. The fallout was immediate. The video surged to 1.1 million views as the hashtag #CarlVanceExposed trended. Listeners flooded the comments with words like traitor and liar. Patrice watched the numbers climb, her breath fogging the window, and dialed Lena from a burner. "Feds are on Carl now. He's done." Lena, holed up in a safe house, made the call. By midnight, sirens screamed through the streets as agents raided Carl's bunker studio. His bald head gleamed under the floodlights as they cuffed him, his screams muffled by the van's door slamming shut. The news broke at 12:15 a.m. Vance arrested for precinct bombing. Maya's stream hit 50,000 live viewers as the city roared. Carl's empire was crumbling. Patrice felt a flicker of power spark inside her, an ember she'd thought was gone. She wasn't finished. At 1 a.m., she slipped into City Hall, using a janitor's key that Mir had swiped. She found Grayson hunched over a whiskey bottle, his tie a noose around his neck. She loomed over him, her shadow swallowing his desk, and pressed her phone to his ear. Carl's confession looped, repeating, "Reinstate me or this goes wider," she demanded, her voice sharp as a blade. Grayson nodded, his hands trembling, and signed the order. By 1:30 a.m., her badge was restored, and the cameras rolled. Maya filmed it all. The stream hit 100,000 views by 2 a.m., the reinstatement trending. Crowds gathered outside City Hall. Not Carl's mob, but hers, 300 strong, cheering as she emerged. Her suit was tattered, but her stance was unbroken. The video rocketed to 1.2 million views. "Chief's back," they chanted as she stood on the steps, the river glinting behind her. The city shifted beneath her feet. Grayson slunk away, his resignation a whisper in the wind. At 2:15 a.m., she called Lena, her tone firm. "Round up Travis's last allies. We're cleaning house." By 3 a.m., officers were saluting her as she strode through, their eyes wide with fear. Her authority was a hammer they couldn't dodge. Patrice sat at her desk, the scarred wood a trophy now. She exhaled, the weight lifting from her chest. Her fight was reborn. Carl was gone. Grayson was broken. Travis was a ghost. She'd won, hadn't she? The city's pulse thrummed with her name. A chant of victory she could almost taste. A moment of light in the dark. That light dimmed at 4 a.m. when a scream shattered the stillness. A call from a pastor blasting through her phone. "Chief, they've got the church." Patrice bolted upright, panic rising. The voice on the other end was frantic. "Travis Malone, unhinged and armed, has stormed a black church on the west side. 20 congregants trapped inside their Wednesday prayer meeting. It's a hostage situation," She raced to the scene, arriving at 4:15 a.m. Her sedan skidded to a halt as floodlights bathed the building, its stained glass gleaming like blood. Travis stood at the door, shotgun in hand, eyes wild. Behind him, a militia of 10 ex-cops and Vance loyalists in tactical vests watched with twisted hatred. He'd rigged a live stream, his phone propped on a pew, broadcasting to a growing audience. Within minutes, 5,000 views poured in as he bellowed, "She resigns or they die." The video hit 1.3 million views, the church's steeple a stark silhouette against the dawn. Patrice stepped out, her badge gleaming. The crowd swelled to 500, their gasps a chorus of dread. He spotted her, a feral grin spreading across his face as he leveled the shotgun. "You thought you'd win, huh? Watch this." Patrice froze. The barrels gleamed with death, and muffled cries from the hostages seeped through the walls. Jamal called at 4:20 a.m., his voice breaking. "Kesha's in there, Trish." She went with friends, her heart sinking as her niece's face flashed in her mind. The kidnappings echoed, a nightmare reborn. She grabbed a bullhorn from an officer, her voice booming over the chaos. "Travis, let them go. This is between us." He laughed, a jagged sound, and fired a warning shot into the sky. The crack split the air as the stream surged to 10,000 views. The militia spread out, sealing off the exits. She dialed Lena, her words a hiss. "Snipers now, no mistakes." The precinct scrambled, but the clock was ticking. Kesha's life hung by a thread in Travis's grip, and Patrice knew this was no bluff. He'd lost everything. His job, his allies, his pride, and now he was willing to burn it all to take her down. The crowd grew to 700, their phones filming the video, which climbed to 1,400,000 views. The city was holding its breath. Patrice stood 50 feet from the church, the bullhorn heavy in her hand. Her eyes were locked on Travis, his militia a wall of menace. She'd hacked Carl, reclaimed her badge, thought she could crush them. But this was a church, 20 souls. Kesha was a strike beyond bombs, a terror so raw it shook her core. The precinct loomed in her mind, a fortress she had fought to maintain, now just a distant echo. Travis's live stream taunted her, his voice a venomous chant. She dies or they do. She had gone underground, struck back, won the city's roar. But they had escalated to this, a final gambit to break her. She dropped the bullhorn, her fists clenching, and stepped closer. The first light of dawn glinted off her badge, a vow to end this no matter the cost. The standoff stretched taut like a wire, ready to snap, and she knew that one wrong move would destroy them all. Patrice Coleman stood 50 feet from the church, the sky bleeding pink over Jack V. Her badge faintly gleamed against her soot-streaked suit as Travis Malone's shotgun reflected the floodlights. It was 4:30 a.m., the air thick with the tang of gunpowder from his warning shot. The crowd swelled to 800, their gasps humming behind the police tape. Inside, 20 hostages, including Kesha, whimpered through the walls. Travis's militia of 10 sealed the exits, their live stream climbing to 15,000 views. His voice, ragged, snarled through the feed. "She resigns or they die." Patrice's heart thudded. Kesha's name screamed silently in her skull, but her face remained stone as she raised her hands and stepped forward. Her boots crunched on gravel. "Travis," she called, her voice steady, cutting through the chaos. "Let them go. Take me instead." The crowd hushed, their phones trembling in their hands. The video surged to 1,500,000 views, the city frozen as Travis grinned, his eyes wild with the manic glee she hadn't seen at the fair. He lowered the shotgun an inch, his militia shifting, their vests bristling with ammo. He barked into the stream, "You hear that? She's giving up." He waved her forward, the barrel twitching. She moved, each step a gamble, her mind racing with the knowledge that Lena's snipers were still minutes out. She reached 30 feet, close enough to see sweat beading on his brow, the stench of whiskey wafting from him. She stopped, her hands still raised. "Release them, Travis. You've got me. That's what you want, right?" He laughed, a jagged sound, and nodded toward a goon, who shoved open the church door. The hostages stumbled out, 19 shadows in the dawn. Their cries pierced the air. Kesha was the last to burst free, her small frame bolting toward Jamal in the crowd. His arm scooped her up as Patrice's chest unclenched, a breath she'd held since 4:20. Travis grabbed her arm, yanking her inside. The door slammed behind them, and the stream surged to 20,000 views as he roared, "Now it's just us, Chief." Inside the church, the air smelled of wax and fear. Pews were overturned, hymnals scattered like fallen leaves. Travis shoved her toward the altar, his shotgun pressed to her back. The militia circled, their boots thudding on the hardwood. A live stream phone glowed on a pew. Maya's feed was syncing it outside, the video reaching 1,600,000 views. A nation was watching as Travis paced, his voice a venomous chant. "You took everything, my job, my life. Now you pay." Patrice stood still, her eyes darting, spotting a brass candlestick by the pulpit. A silent promise. She had saved Kesha, freed the others, but this was her crucible. A trap she had walked into to end him. She turned slowly, facing him, her voice low. "You're finished, Travis. No badge, no allies, just a drunk with a gun." His face twisted in rage as he swung the shotguns but toward her head in a clumsy arc. She dodged, lunging for the candlestick, her fingers wrapping around its cold metal. The fight erupted, a blur of fury in the dim light of the church. Patrice swung the candlestick hard, cracking Travis's wrist. The shotgun clattered to the floor. He roared, tackling her, his fists hammering into her ribs, but she rolled, slamming the brass into his temple. Blood sprayed as he staggered. The militia froze, stunned. Their leader crumbled. She kicked the gun away, pinning him with her knee, her breath ragged as she twisted his arm. His screams echoed off the rafters. "Stay down," she hissed, wrenching harder. He went limp, his fight bleeding out on the hardwood. Patrice stood, chest heaving, and waved at the camera. "He's done." Her voice was raw with triumph as Maya's feed hit 1,700,000 views. The crowd outside erupted, 1,000 strong now, their cheers shaking the earth. Cops stormed in at 4:50 a.m., cuffing Travis and his crew. The live stream cut off as he was dragged out, his head lolling, a broken man at last. Patrice emerged at 5 a.m., the dawn brightening. Her suit was torn, blood streaking her face, but her stance was unbroken as the crowd roared, "Chief! Chief!" Jamal rushed to her, Kesha in his arms. They embraced, a lifeline. The video hit 1,800,000 views. Travis down, trending. The city hailed her as a hero. She called Lena at 5:15 a.m., her voice hoarse. "Push Grayson out. He's next." Lena relayed the message, and by 6 a.m., Grayson had resigned. A press release cited personal reasons, his office now empty as the council caved. Her reform bill was greenlit. She stood on the church steps, the crowd at 1,200, their phones filming. She felt the weight lift, Travis's defeat, a crown she had forged in blood and brass. The precinct buzzed with her return, officers saluting her as fear was replaced by respect, and she thought, "Finally, I've won." The video hit 1,900,000 views, her name echoing across Jacksonville. A victory so sweet it drowned out the arson, the bomb, the mob. Was this her unbreakable moment? That triumph shattered at 6:30 when a crack split the air. A sniper's bullet grazed her shoulder, the sting sharp as she stumbled, blood blooming through her sleeve. The crowd screamed, scattering, phones dropping as cops drew their guns, scanning rooftops. The video surged to 2 million views. Chaos was trending as the chief shot flashed online. She clutched her arm, ducking behind a squad car, her pulse racing as a voice crackled through her radio, low and cold. "Next time, headshot." Lena rushed over, her face pale, shouting, "Get her out!" as medics swarmed, bandaging her on the spot. The wound was shallow, but the threat was deep. The church loomed behind her, a sanctuary turned battlefield, and she knew this wasn't Travis, cuffed and gone, but Carl's shadow, or worse, a new player striking from the dark. The crowd thinned to 500, their cheers silenced by fear. Patrice stood, refusing a stretcher, her eyes burning with defiance as the sniper disappeared, the rooftops empty. She leaned against the car, the bandage tight, her shoulder throbbing. The radio's whisper looped in her mind. She had taken Travis down, freed the hostages, thought she had crushed them all. But this, a bullet from nowhere, a strike beyond his reach, a promise of deadlier foes. The precinct buzzed in her thoughts, a fortress she had reclaimed, now a target again. And she saw the pattern. Every victory birthed a worse blow. Relentless, unyielding. She'd fought with fists, with proof, with crowds. But this was a ghost, a shadow she couldn't punch. The video hit 2,100,000 views, her blood a stark image online. She straightened, wiping sweat from her brow, the dawn's light harsh on her wounds. They had taken her home, her niece, her peace, and now they aimed to take her life. She muttered to Lena, "Find that shooter." Her voice was a vow as she turned back to the fight. She couldn't flee. This was a war with no end in sight. Patrice Coleman sat in the precinct's command room, the morning sun slicing through blinds at 7 a.m. Her shoulder throbbed under a fresh bandage, the sniper's graze a dull ache she chose to ignore. The video had hit 2,200,000 views, the church standoff trending. Her blood-stained image was a rallying cry. But that radio whisper, "Next time," headshot, lingered. She had called Lena at 6:45 a.m., her voice a steel thread through the pain. "Set a trap for Carl. He's behind the sniper. Use his bail." Lena nodded, her eyes sharp. By 7:15, they had rigged a sting, a fake informant, a burner phone, and a meet at a derelict pier off the river. Patrice stood, her suit swapped for a tactical vest, leading the operation herself. 6 officers in tow, their boots silent on the precinct floor as they rolled out. The air buzzed with her command, the sniper's threat fueling her resolve. She was going after Carl Vance, a man she'd buried until now. They hit the pier at 8 a.m., the water lapping against the rotting wood. The informant, a wiry undercover named Jace, waited in a hoodie, wired with a mic. Carl arrived at 8:15, out on bail from the bomb charge, his bald head gleaming under a cap. His gait was cocky, despite the cuffs he had worn just hours ago. He had bitten the bait, a promise of sniper intel too juicy to resist. Patrice watched from a van 50 yards away, her pulse steady as Jace played his part. "Got your shooter's name," Jace muttered, slipping Carl a note. Carl snatched it, his voice rasping through the mic. "Good. That dies today. Hired him for 10 grand. Patrice's fist clenched, the confession crackling in her earpiece. She signaled the team. "Go!" They swarmed, guns drawn. Carl's hands shot up as he snarled, "Set up!" The cops tackled him, cuffs snapping as Patrice stepped out, her eyes locked on his. "Life sentence, Carl. Enjoy it." The pier stank of fish and defeat. The video hit 2,300,000 views as Maya's live feed captured the bust. Vance was trending. Back at the precinct by 9 a.m., Patrice pored over Carl's phone, seized in the sting. It was a gold mine, logs showing 10 officers on his payroll, names matching her audit list. Their texts were a trail of slurs and threats. She called Lena at 9:15 a.m., her tone unyielding. "Fire them all. 10 now." Lena executed the order. By 10 a.m. badges were yanked. Lockers emptied. The precinct buzzed with shock as the traitors were marched out. Their protests were drowned by the clang of doors. The video surged to 2,400,000 views. The purge was trending. Patrice stood in the lobby, the bomb scars still roaring. She addressed the rest of the officers. "You're with me or you're gone," she said, her voice a hammer. The room saluted, fear turning into loyalty under her glare. She had trapped Carl, gutted his crew, thought she'd won. Her shoulder still stung, a badge of her fight. The city buzzed with her name, a chant of triumph. She could feel the fortress reclaimed from the rot. That triumph peaked at noon when Jacksonville threw a parade in her honor. The streets were alive with 2,000 souls, their cheers a roar as she rode in an open car. Jamal and Kesha were beside her, smiles a balm to her wounds. The sun blazed, banners flapped, Chief Coleman, our hero, and the video hit 2,500,000 views. Parade for Patrice was trending as horns blared, confetti raining down. She waved, her vest swapped for a crisp blazer. The sniper threat was now a shadow she had banished. Carl's life sentence was a lock she'd turned herself. The crowd swelled to 2,500, their phones filming, and she felt invincible. The precinct's loyalty was her shield. Her reform bill had passed by morning. Travis was cuffed. Carl was done. Grayson was a ghost. She had crushed them all, hadn't she? The car rolled past City Hall, the river glinting, and she leaned back, the weight gone. A victory so bright it blinded her to the cracks. Those cracks split open at 12:30 when a squad car screeched to a stop. For officers loyal, she had thought. Leaped out mid-parade, their guns drawn. Drawn faces hard as they cuffed her wrists, the metal biting against her skin. The crowd gasped, phones wobbling. The video rocketed to 2,600,000 views as Chief arrested trended. A city stunned into silence. "You're a threat to stability," one barked, his voice a snarl. She recognized him. Officer Pike, a name she hadn't expected to hear. His eyes glinted with a hate she had underestimated. Jamal shouted, "Let her go!" But they shoved her into the car. Kesha's cries pierced the air as the parade froze, confetti settling in a surreal haze. She sat in the back seat, her shoulder throbbing, the cuffs biting into her wrists. A leaked memo, mailed to Lena at 12:15, claimed Grayson had sold her out to Governor Tate, a racist relic who had declared a state of emergency, targeting black neighborhoods with troops and pinning it on her. Chaos. The precinct had turned. Pike's crew, a sleeper cell, and her triumph was now a trap. The car sped to the station, the crowd thinning to 1,000, their cheers souring into whispers as troops in camo rolled in, locking down the streets. The video hit 2,700,000 views, a city split by betrayal. Patrice sat in a holding cell, the concrete cold against her back. Her blazer was torn, the memo's text glowing on her phone before they had seized it. Coleman's instability justifies action. Governor Tate. She's trapped. Carl fired. 10 thought she'd won. But this is a governor's coup. Her own men turning. It was a strike beyond Travis, beyond Carl. A systemic claw she had barely scratched. The precinct loomed around her. A cage now, its scars mocking her. She saw the pattern. Every victory birthed a worse beast, this one cloaked in lore. She banged the bars, her voice a roar. "Lena, get me out!" But silence answered, the sound of boots echoing outside, troops marching. A war she had fought to stop, now swallowing her whole. Patrice Coleman sat in a stark Jacksonville courtroom. The clock ticked past 2 p.m. Her wrists chafed from the cuffs that still lingered in her memory, though they had been removed for the hearing. The room buzzed with tension. 100 eyes. Reporters, cops, citizens, boring into her as she faced trumped-up treason charges. A grotesque gift from Governor Tate's state emergency. The video had soared to 2,800,000 views, her mid-parade arrest trending. A city split between outrage and fear as troops patrolled black neighborhoods, their boots a drumbeat of oppression she had fought to stop. She wore a borrowed blazer, her shoulder bandaged, the sniper's graze a dull throb as she stared at the judge. A stern woman named Hargrove, with silver hair and a gaze like flint. The prosecution, a slick attorney named Vickers, paced, his voice venomous. Coleman's actions, raids, purges, chaos threatened stability. She's a traitor to this state. Her legacy teetered on a tightrope over a pit she had clawed out of, and she felt the weight of every blow. Travis's spit, Carl's bomb, the mob's fire, piling on this final stake. Travis Malone slouched in the witness box at 2:15. His orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the uniform he had once flaunted. His smirk remained intact despite the cuffs from the church standoff. Vickers called him first, a pawn in Tate's game. He leaned into the mic, his voice a gravelly taunt. "She framed me, pushed me out, turned the city against good cops. That bomb, the fire, all her doing, just to look like a hero. The lie slithered through the room, gasps rippling. The video hit 2,900,000 views as live streams captured his grin, his ghost testifying against her. Patrice's jaw tightened, her fists clenching under the table, but she stayed silent. Her eyes flicked to Maya Torres in the gallery, her friend's face pale but resolute. She had slipped Maya a burner phone at 4:45, smuggled Violina during a jailhouse visit. A last gambit. She whispered in the dark, "Hack Tate. Find the truth." Now she waited. The clock ticked, a guillotine hanging over her. Travis's words a noose she couldn't dodge. Yet Vickers strutted, piling on his evidence. A sham? Doctored logs claiming she had ordered the bomb. Forged memos linking her to Carl's mob. The jury, 8 white faces and 4 black, shifted uneasily, doubt creeping in. Hargrove banged her gavel at 2:30, silencing murmurs. Her voice was sharp. "Defense, your turn." Patrice's lawyer, a grizzled ex-cop named Rolls, stood. His limp badge a mark from his own battles, he called no witnesses, a move that drew gasps. She nodded at him, her signal clear. He sat, leaving the room hanging. Vickers smirked like he had won. Then, at 2:40, Maya slipped her the burner under the table. Its screen glowed with a file hacked from Tate's private server. A recording time-stamped 3 days ago. Patrice stood, her voice cutting through the hush. "Your Honor, play this." Hargrove's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. The clerk plugged it in. Tate's voice boomed, oily and smug. "Coleman's a problem. Frame her for treason. Lock her up. Keep the NRS in line." The room erupted.
Jurors gasped, Vickers paling.
The video hit 3 million views. Tate Exposed was trending. Hargrove slammed her gavel. Her face stormy, she turned to Vickers. Her voice was ice. "Explain this." He stammered, sweat beading on his forehead, but the damage was done. The jury's eyes blazed with fury as Patrice stood taller. Her shoulder's pain was a distant echo. Her voice, a blade. "That's the real traitor. He used Travis, Carl, the mob, all to crush me, to crush us." The gallery roared, 50 voices shouting, "Free her." Hargrove didn't hesitate. Her ruling was swift. At 3 o'clock, all charges dismissed. Coleman cleared. Under investigation. The cuffs stayed off. The courtroom doors flung open, and Patrice walked out. The sun blinded her as the crowd outside swelled to 2,000. Their cheers were a tidal wave as troops retreated, their emergency crumbling under Tate's own words. The video hit 3,100,000 views. Maya's stream hit 200,000 live. A city reclaiming its chief. Her badge a beacon. She'd wrested it back from the abyss. She stood on the courthouse steps at 3:15, Jamal and Kesha rushing toward her. Their hugs were a lifeline as the crowd chanted, "Chief! Chief!" Lena flanked her, grinning. The precinct was hers again, its rot purged by her hand. The reform bill stood, the 10 fired, Carl jailed for life, Travis a shell of himself. She had won a victory forged in blood and fire, her legacy a flame they couldn't extinguish. The video surged to 3,200,000 views, her name a hymn across Jacksonville. She breathed deep, the river gleaming beyond her. A moment of peace she had earned. Tate's fall was breaking news by 3:30. His mansion raided, his career reduced to ash. She felt the weight lift, the war's end, a dawn she had fought to see. She'd faced spit, bombs, mobs, bullets, and still, she hadn't broken. The crowd thinned to 1,500, their phones lowered, their faith in her unwavering. She turned to go, the precinct calling, a fortress she had rebuilt. But that peace shattered at 11 p.m. when she sat in her office, the slur-carved desk a trophy. The city was quiet under a moonless sky. The video hit 3,300,000 views, her triumph trending, but a shadow moved. A figure stood in her doorway, silent as death. She looked up, her pulse spiking. A voice whispered, low and cold, "You didn't catch us all." A glint of steel flashed as a knife arced toward her. The lights cut out, plunging her into darkness. Her scream was swallowed by the blackness as the blade stopped inches from her throat. A hand yanked it back, the shadow vanishing into the hall. She leapt up, her chair crashing to the floor. She grabbed her gun, firing blindly. The shots echoed, but the figure was gone. A ghost she couldn't name. The precinct hummed, oblivious. She stood, breath ragged. The knife's edge was a promise of a foe beyond Travis, beyond Carl, beyond Tate. A cabal untouched, waiting. The video's echo faded. Her victory felt like a hollow shell, and she knew this war wasn't over. A cliffhanger carved in the dark. Patrice Coleman's journey in this gripping tale reveals profound truths about resilience, justice, and the unyielding fight against systemic racism. One key lesson is the power of persistence. Patrice faced relentless attacks: spit, vandalism, arson, a bombing, even betrayal. Yet she never surrendered. Each blow tested her, but her refusal to break turned every setback into a stepping stone, showing that strength isn't just physical, but a fire in the soul. Another takeaway is the cost of challenging power. Her victories, exposing Travis, jailing Carl, toppling Tate, came with escalating retaliation. From personal losses like her home to public threats like the sniper, it proved that dismantling injustice often demands sacrifice. The story also underscores the importance of allies. Maya's journalism, Lena's loyalty, and the community's marches were lifelines, highlighting that no one wins alone against a rigged system. Finally, the chilling twist that a shadow remains teaches us that evil adapts, lurking beyond each triumph, urging vigilance even in victory. Patrice's saga isn't just a tale. It's a mirror to our world, where racism's roots run deep, and cutting them takes more than one swing. Her story inspires us to stand firm, speak truth, and lean on each other, even when the fight feels endless. So, what's the takeaway for you? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Did Patrice's grit change how you see justice? Hit like if her battle stirred you. Subscribe to catch more stories of defiance, and share if you believe in fighting back. Thanks for joining this wild ride. Here's to courage that outlasts the dark, and may you find your own strength to rise against the odds.